Hey, 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 all my little friends. Welcome to our Narwhal Mosaic tutorial. Today we're gonna be creating this cute under the sea inspired project featuring Unicorn of the Sea, Narwhal himself. On your table today, you are going to need your placemat. We will be using acrylic paint as well as glue. These materials can be difficult to remove from fabrics and surfaces. We strongly recommend covering your workspace with the provided placemat. We also recommend wearing art clothes or a smock to protect your clothing. If you have yet to cover your workspace, go ahead and push pause now and make sure that you put your tablecloth down or your placemat and meet us right back here. If at any point during this tutorial you need to pause, rewind, or fast forward, feel free to do so. And we are ready to get started. Okay, so in addition to your Narwhal plaque, your blank plaque, you are also going to need your two brushes. We have this big brush and then this little detail brush, this little square blue brush, sorry. And you are going to need your white paint and this little container of blue paint. Step one of this project is going to be painting the background. Step two of the project, we're going to be outlining, and step three will be tiling. So for now, we are going to do the painting part of our project. And the first step of this project is really easy because all we need to do is paint our entire narwhal. Okay, white. All right, so we're going to start out on his tail. And we're gonna work all the way around. Now, he is eventually gonna be blue, like the sample, but we're gonna wanna blend this blue in the background. And in order to blend our background, it's gonna be much easier if our narwhal is white. The other reason it's gonna be easier is a lot of these little details, like his belly and his horn, are white. So by just kind of painting over them now, we don't have to worry that we're gonna have to go back in and go around those details to fill them in. All right, so I'm trying to spread my paint out pretty thin on my project. You don't want your paint really clumpy and chunky. It'll take a really long time to dry. So you're just gonna really pull it across your project with your big brush and try to spread a nice thin layer all the way across. Okay, you can go right over his eyes and you can go over any of these black lines. One of the cool things about these projects is those black lines will reappear as your paint starts to dry, so you don't have to worry. We're also gonna go back and outline everything in black. So even if they don't pop right back out, you're definitely gonna be able to see them. Okay, so I just did one coat, but really it was probably almost like doing two coats because I went back over everything again. If you can still see a lot of your brown base behind your white color, you can put another coat on, especially in his belly area, which is gonna be just white, and his horn area. So I'm just gonna add a teeny bit more in those places. Not really as worried about the rest of his body since we're gonna be adding some blue in the next step. Okay. All right, we're gonna give him just a second to dry, and while you're letting him dry, you are going to grab your mixing plate or your mixing card. Some of the kits have a little paper plate. I have this like weird Christmas plate today. Some of you may just have a little piece of cardstock. So all we need to do is mix a little bit of white and blue. So whatever mixing tray you have in your kit today, you're gonna just go ahead and pull out. So what we wanna do is kind of take a scoop of this white paint and put it onto our plate. I'm still have my big brush. And then we are going to add in some of our blue. You can use your other brush for this if you want. That way you don't contaminate all of your blue with white. I would say make a small pile next to your white, and then the easiest thing to do is mix it in a little bit at a time. You never know, sometimes it's gonna get really dark really fast, so you kind of want to take your time and make sure that you know how dark you want it. If you mix it all at the beginning and it gets too dark, you're not going to be able to lighten it. All right. We are also going to add 1 dot or 2 dots of our green paint. Okay. So let's see. I'm going to just wipe my blue brush off for a sec and scoop a little bit of this green and do the same thing. I'm just going to put it right here on the side. And then I can mix it in a little bit. Okay, so the color that we're looking for is sort of a blue-green, and there's not a right or wrong here. If you think your narwhal should be more bluish, you can add more blue. If you want him to be more green, you can add more green. If you think that the color that you mixed is too dark, you can always add a little more white. That's gonna lighten it up. So you're gonna mix until you find a color that you think is perfect for your narwhal. I'm pretty happy with this one, so I'm gonna go ahead and start filling him in. So here's the parts that we wanna avoid. We don't wanna paint in his eyes, we don't wanna paint on his horn, and we don't wanna paint on his belly. So we're gonna switch between this big brush and this smaller brush so that we can go around some of these smaller areas. But for now, we're just gonna start right at his tail. We're gonna start filling him in. We're just using one solid color for now. And then in the next step, we'll do a little bit of shading. So if you need to switch to your smaller brush, when you get into these little spots, go ahead and do it. Whatever feels comfortable for you. If you feel like you can paint the whole thing with a big brush, that's great too. I'm still spreading my paint out pretty thin, and I'm just avoiding this belly section. If you get paint where it doesn't belong, that is not a problem. You can use a damp paper towel or a little sponge, it'll wipe right off. You can also wait till it dries and paint over it. All right, I don't think I can fill in his little fin here with my big brush, so switching out to the small guy for a sec. I didn't even wash this little brush off, it had that green on it. I just covered it in the next color. I think while I have this little brush, I am just going to scoop right around these eyes as well. Again, don't worry if paint goes where you don't want it. It's not a problem. A lot of ways to fix it. And this is summer, virtual summer art. You should be having fun. Don't be stressed out by your project. All right, so we went around all of these details, and I think I can probably fill in the rest with my big brush now. Let's see. Let's see if I'm right, or if I need to switch back. If you didn't mix enough paint, you can always mix some more, and if it looks like it's a different color than what you did before, you can just go back and recoat the original section you did. So drag this color onto the tail. Okay, just getting around his eyes a little bit. All right, so what we're gonna wanna do now is deepen the color that's towards the bottom, and we're gonna sort of lighten the color that's near the top. So I'm gonna go back to my small brush, because to deepen this color under his belly is kind of a small area. So we're gonna use the same colors that we used before. We have this sort of greenish color and this bluish color. So we're just gonna mix them together. If you don't have enough left on your tray, you could just add some more on there. You can even scoop up some of this color that we were using before. It's not too dark. And then we're gonna take this color and we're gonna just sort of go right in this area under his belly. Your other base color that you just painted should be a little bit wet still, so you can try to blend this into your other color. We're also gonna put a little shadow right here on the bottom of this fin. And then a little bit right here on the bottom of this fin. All right, I'm gonna go in and just make this a little darker. And if you don't like the shadowing, if you wanna just leave your project with no shadow, it's totally up to you. This is your art, you can make it however you like. Just blending mine up towards the top a little bit, adding a little bit more around this top edge. Okay, I'm gonna shadow his little fin right here. Great, okay. I'm gonna highlight the top of his body. So we're using two different words here, right? I just used the word shadow. So shadow usually means to make something darker, and highlight usually means to make something lighter. So the next thing we're gonna do is highlight. So we wanna use a pretty clean brush. If you have a paper towel, you can just wipe your brush off on the paper towel just to get some of the excess paint off of there. But we're gonna take a little bit of white and try to make a really light blue. And we're gonna use that to sort of just scoop over the top of his back. All right, if you kind of push your brush back and forth down here a little bit, lightly, you can blend in this color a little bit with the background. So I'm kind of doing some short brush strokes and just blending this highlight color into the background so it's not so stark. Okay. We're gonna add a little of our highlight color to the top edge of this fin. I'm touching that other color. I want them to mix a little bit. Same thing with this fin. Okay, a little bit on this edge and just a teeny bit on this poking out right here. All right, our blue section is totally done. If you need to go back and touch up your white section at all, make sure that you wash out your brush before you do that. I didn't put any water on my table today because we weren't really gonna be switching colors that much. But I'll probably, when I go up and wash out my brushes, go back in and just put a little bit of white here on the belly where I got some blue. And if that is the case for you, feel free to go back in and touch up anything. If it's just a little bit, probably chances are in the next step when we go back and outline everything, you'll be able to cover up any little inconsistencies that you see. All right, so for now, we are done with the painting part of our project. So what you're gonna wanna do is recap all of your paint colors and you can put them back into your bag. And then you can also rinse out any water bowls that you had on your table and make sure that you rinse your brushes that we were using with acrylic. We wanna rinse these really well and lay them flat to dry, okay? If you leave the paint in the brushes, it becomes really difficult to remove the paint. So we wanna take these to the sink now and make sure that we get them really clean. This part of our project needs to dry, so this is a good time to clean up our workspace. So everybody go ahead and take a minute to do that now, and we'll see you back in just a sec. All right, guys, we're back. Our project's had a few minutes to dry. I normally just touch it and make sure that it's really dry before I start to move on to the outlining part of my project. The reason I say that is we're gonna be outlining with a Sharpie today. or a permanent black marker, whatever came in your kit, same thing. And if wet paint gets on the felt tip of this marker will stop working. So it's important that we've given our base plenty of time to dry before we move on to this next step. Okay, so for the next 2 steps of our project, here's what we're gonna need on our T-ball. In addition to that Sharpie marker we were just talking about, you're gonna need your container of glue, your popsicle stick, and whatever mosaic tiles came inside your kit. I put a big assortment of tiles on my table today, just so you could see what some of the different options might look like of what you might get in your kit. You're not gonna get exactly what you see on my table. You're gonna get some kind of combination of these colors and these shapes, but I just wanted you to be able to see all the possibilities of what possibly could come inside your kit. All right, so for now, we're just gonna put our tiles and our glue to the side and we're gonna focus on the outlining part of our project. So the first thing we wanna do is outline all of the details that you see on these lines. So I like to start at the horn, and I'm just gonna work my way up the side of the horn, and I'm gonna go over each of these lines. Okay. The next thing I'm gonna outline are my narwhal's eyes. Your lines don't have to be perfect, but do the best you can. I'm not gonna outline the pupil because we're gonna be putting a tile there, but if you'd like to outline the pupil, you can. And the smile. Okay, we're gonna do the belly. If my marker sort of has the part where it stops, sometimes I'll leave a little space in between my 2 lines, or I'll even put a tiny dot. I like the way it looks. It's normally how I do my outlining. If you prefer just a solid line, you can try to make your line go all the way without any breaks, or just try to meet up so that you don't have these dots. I just like it. And if you like it, you can do it. And if you don't, obviously, you don't have to. Sometimes I do 1 dot, sometimes I do 2 dots, sometimes I just leave a little space. I try to mix it up. I think it makes it look fun, and I also think it gives these lines a little bit of energy. Okay, I just outlined this little section down here by his fin. And then I'm gonna put an outline along the top edge of the project. So I'm probably gonna start a little bit above the eye, and I'm just gonna start adding a line that goes really close to the edge of his back. Obviously, it doesn't have to be perfect, which we've talked about 17 times today. So do the best you can. You can also skip this step. If you're thinking to yourself, well, that just looks really hard, and I don't think I'm gonna have fun doing that, you should skip. But if you want to, it's not that hard. And I think it gives him like a cute finished edge over here. We're gonna go around his whole tail. And then I'm gonna do just a teensy wincy bit right here. Okay, and that's it. All right, did I get everything? Let me double check. Did I outline everything? I think we are good. Okay, he's cute, guys. He's so cute already. I am capping my Sharpie marker. Oh, you know what? Oh my gosh, one more thing before you cap. You can always flip your project over at this point since he's really dry, and you can write your name or your initials or whatever is your signature. And I always like to write the date just so that I can always remember when I created this adorable project. Okay, once you've done that, you are capping your marker, and this is going to go back into your kit and get returned to the studio, okay? So whatever bag you have that's coming back to the studio, make sure the Sharpie marker goes inside. All right, we're ready to start tiling. So we're gonna just go over a couple of things so that you have all the information, and then I'll be tiling my project, and you can hit pause to tile your project. Okay, so I like to pour my tiles out onto the table. I think it helps me to see what's inside of my containers. I'm not gonna pour my white tiles out yet. Since they're only gonna go inside of the narwhal's belly, I'm gonna kind of save those for a second, but I do wanna see what color, you know, tiles I have for the body of my narwhal. So I have a couple of different styles of tiles over here. I have little smooth tiles, I have some round tiles, there's a bunch of different colors, and then I have one other container that has these sort of strange shapes. Some hexagons, I have a triangle. All right, so we have a pretty big assortment. Like I said, you may have some of these tiles, you may have all of these tiles. It's just gonna depend on what we can get in stock at the time. Okay, so here's a couple of pointers. We are not gonna be tiling our entire project. So here's our sample. And as you can see, only a portion of the narwhal's body is tiled. You are only gonna receive this many tiles in your kit, enough to tile this much of your narwhal's body. It doesn't have to be in this exact place. You could spread these tiles out so they cover his whole body. You could put them on the bottom, you could put them anywhere, but you're not gonna have enough to cover every square inch. So for that reason, it's important to plan out where your tiles are gonna go before you glue them in place. So for example, I usually do a small section, or think about a small section, and lay some tiles out and really get an idea about how it's gonna look before I start to put glue on my project. So I'm putting a couple of tiles on here, trying to mix up the styles and sort of mix up the colors just to keep it interesting. Maybe we should do one of these cool ones. Maybe a little dot up here. So I would put your tiles on and make sure that you look at them and you think to yourself, ooh, I love this. Like, this is exactly how I want my project to look before you glue them on. Once you have a section done like this, you can take your glue, and there's two ways to glue our tiles on. The first one is to put the glue onto the individual tile and using your popsicle stick, and then stick your tile onto your base. The second option is to put some glue on your popsicle stick, put it right onto your base, and then put your tile on. Either of these methods is fine, and whichever you choose, just choose the one that's more comfortable for you. All right, another tip about gluing. As you're gluing, it's possible for some of your glue to go out beyond the borders and boundaries of your tile. So glue may ooze out or go somewhere where your tile's not covering it, and it's gonna look white. However, when that glue completely dries, it's gonna be totally clear. So you don't have to worry if you have any areas like this where you can see that glue, because once it gets totally dry, all that glue is going to disappear and just be clear. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and finish tiling my narwhal's body, and you can follow along. You can make yours look exactly like mine. You can do your own thing. You can pause, you can fast forward, or you can rewind. think I'm happy with this section of my narwhal. I have a lot of tiles left over, but you won't have nearly as many. Like I said in the beginning, I just wanted to make sure that you kind of got an idea about some of the different kind of tiles that you may get in your kit. If we look back at the first example, this one doesn't have quite as many of those different shapes. It has more of the same sort of smooth shapes. And then in the sample that I did today, we have some of these other kind of funky shapes. So you may get this option or this one, but either way, you're gonna have enough tiles to tile approximately this much of your project. Okay, if you do have any extra tiles left over, you can put them back into the cups that they came in, and you can send them back to the studio with whatever other materials you're delivering back when you drop off your Paint Your Own Pottery project. Okay, the other part of the narwhal that we're gonna tile is his belly and his eyes. Oh, sorry, so I cleaned up my circle tiles, but you're gonna pick 2 circle tiles to be your eye color. I like this dark blue color, but whatever is comfortable for you. You probably had 2 light blue. You could do green. That's actually pretty cute. Oh, he's so cute. Maybe I'll go for green this time. Let's see, let's try out the dark blue again. Sticking with dark blue. Okay, so these eyeballs, iris, whatever they are, pupils, are gonna get glued onto these little circles. So cute. And we are going to work with our circle tiles. So we have a couple of big tiles and a couple of small tiles, and we're gonna use these to fill in part of our narwhal's belly. Again, we're not gonna have enough tiles to fill in the whole thing, so we strongly recommend that you lay these tiles out before you start gluing. And once you have a pattern that you're happy with, you can go ahead and glue them in place. Okay, all my circle tiles are in place. And at this point, we are pretty much done with our project. Make sure that you cap your glue and put this to the side. And we would recommend letting your project lay flat to dry for about 24 hours before you stand it up or hang it up, just to make sure that the glue has enough time to really dry. I hope everyone had the best time creating our Narwhal Mosaic today, and have a wonderful day, my little friends.